Hi guys, I'm Emma and welcome to Art by Emma. So just pulling my sleeves up and getting myself ready because this week I'm going to be trying a real squishy makeover. So I found this little battered pussycat leopard whatever squishy and he's missing a few pieces, but I'm going to see if I can do what I can do with this one. He's got a little hole there. He's in a little bad state, but yeah, I'm sure we can do something with him. I think he was like a unicorn something or another, but it's not really much of a horn there. And I found these other ones, this little two-tiered cream cake that the top is severed from, so maybe do something like sitting the pussycat on top or something like that. There are a couple more squishies here that I've seen, but I think I'm going to save them for a later date. I don't know what it is with these unicorn ones. The horn always seems to get broken off, so yeah, I don't think I'm going to be using these this week. I think I'm going to stick to the cat and the two-tiered cream cake. So let's get on with it, shall we? So this is definitely going to get a little bit messy before it gets any better. First thing I've got to do is chop the top tier off of the cake and tidy up all of these scraggly edges. There's some squishy guts brushing away. So I'm going to place this cat on top of it like that and pop the little tail on the back like that, so he's crawled up through the cake maybe. So it's still not flat enough on the top for my liking, so a little bit more trimming. And that seems to be a lot flatter. So pussycat on top there, but not like that. It's time to cut the poor little pussycat in half. Ah! And there's my little half pussycat. So let's see how he is going to fit on top of the cake. Yeah, so far so good. I think he just needs a little bit of trimming to add to the squishy guts. And that seems to be not a bad fit. I've got a little hole in here that I'm going to try and fill up with puffy paint, but apart from that it's not too bad. So now it's time to rough him up with a little bit of sandpaper, just to open up those pores a little bit and help the paint adhere to it. So far so good, but it seems to be a little bit bulgy there. I want the cat to be coming out of the cake, so let's take some of those innards out of the cake and see how we're fitting now. Much better. And now let's move on to this tail. He's got a few scraggly ends as well that just need tidying up, just further adding to my pile of squishy guts over here. Now let's see how he's going to fit on the back, just like that. And I think it might be time to start gluing. So I'm opening up my brand new packet of Fabric Fusion and getting my rubber bands out. And who doesn't love a bit of slow motion dropping of bands? So it's a case of putting some Fabric Fusion on and holding the pussycat in place, and then doing the same with the tail. So glue on and pieces in place. It's time to hold it snug for 2 to 4 hours with some rubber bands. And I really don't know how many rubber bands I need, so I'm working on the theory that there's no such thing as too many. So I've left that overnight to dry and fingers crossed it's all stuck together. I have absolutely no idea if this is going to work, but I'm peeling them off quite tentatively. I know this is in fast motion, but yay, it's stuck. You have absolutely no idea how pleased I am that that has stuck. So like I said, I'm going to get the slick paint, the puffy paint out and try and fill in some of these holes and cover up some of the rougher surfaces of the squishy where I trimmed him away. And also fill in some of these cracks on this damaged squishy and the gaps between where I've glued them together to try and make it look seamless, and the gaps on the tail between the tail and the cake. Next I'm going to whip out a little popsicle stick here and just smooth around where I've applied the puffy paint to. I'm not even sure I'm doing any of this correctly. I've watched a few squishy makeover videos, Mariah Elizabeth and Graveyard Loon, and they seem to use all these utensils, so I'm trying my best. So the next thing I'm going to do is give him a nice base coat to give me a nice white surface to work on, and I'm using a combination of slick and matte paint because I've heard that that's the best thing to use. Now, from the little experience I've got of painting squishies, I know that it is a long and arduous process of building up coats, because when you use fabric paint on squishies, they tend to come out in really thin coats. So it's a case of applying a coat, drying it with a hairdryer, applying another coat, and so on and so forth. But it seems to be building up good, and I'm getting a nice bit of coverage on this. So I don't know whether that was 4 or 5 coats of paint, but all I know is it was many, many, many coats. So I'm going back in with the slick paint, because where I popped it in before, it wasn't properly dry before I started painting, so I've moved some of it around. So I'm filling those gaps again before I proceed with the painting section. This is a real learning curve for me. You can watch as many videos as you like, but doing it is the best practice that you can get. I'm noticing some seams on the squishy that I should maybe have trimmed up before I started, but there he is, all white and ready for painting. So it's just a case of deciding what colours I'm going to use. Now, as with all of my makes, they're not perfect, but they're perfectly mine. And I think I'm going to turn him into a little bit of a chocolate cat. So I'm making a nice milk chocolate colour for the body of my cat. And again, it's a case of slapping it on, doing a coat, drying that coat, etc, etc. So with the main body and the tail painted in this nice chocolate or milk chocolate colour, I'm going to use the brown straight out to make a dark chocolate to go on the ears and the tip of the tail. And now I keep referring to this cat as him and he, but it has a little bow on its forehead, so I'm suggesting that it might be a she, so I'm going to start referring to her and she. So again, building up the chocolate brown, the dark chocolate brown across the ears and the tip of the tail, drying it with the hairdryer, and it's moving on to, I believe, what was a unicorn horn, but it's quite stubby and rounded. So I'm going to turn this into a cherry and paint it this lovely cherry red colour. I actually got really good coverage from this red paint, so it only took a couple of coats. So it's a case now of going in and tidying up where I have overlapped some of the paint. So I'm using my dotting tools and going in and just making some nice tidy edges. And to try and make his tail look a little bit more like it's a fluffy tail, a furry tail, I'm just adding some details. It looks a bit like grass, but it's fur coming up off the tip of his tail. And I'm still referring to my little cat as a him. Maybe we'll stick with a him. The hims can wear bows if they want to. Talking about bows, I'm going to paint this a nice dark green. I've not got a stem in the cherry or a leaf or anything, so this is kind of representative maybe of the stem and the leaf. So again, going in, doing lots and lots of coats, drying it, doing another coat until I've built up enough coverage. And so now it's a case of sketching a little face on my little pussycat. So I'm going to sketch it in first of all with my white gel pen just to see where the placement is going to be. And then I'm going to get my dotting tools out and I'm going to pop some fabric paint on there to give him his cute little face, complete with a little pink tongue. And with the pussycat section all completed, it's time to crack on with painting the cake. So I've gone for, I'm going to try and make this look like a chocolate cake for the chocolate pussycat. I don't know if it looks a little bit like coffee cake, but it's a chocolate cake. So it's just a case, again, of layering up the paint, drying it, layering up, and seeing if we get some nice good coverage. So many coats of paint on the cake to get some nice coverage on that. I won't bore you with showing you all the coats. So we're going to move on to some raspberry dripping frosting. This has 2 layers of frosting, so I'm going to go in with 2 different colours. Last week, I don't know if you watched it, I made some clay cupcakes and one of them was chocolate and vanilla with lemon sprinkles even. So I'm going to kind of follow along with that theme again. Raspberry frosting all finished, and it didn't take many coats because I used my dotting tool, which you get fantastic coverage with. So now the top layer of frosting I'm going to do white, using my brush this time and just the finer details with the dotting tool. So with the white frosting finished, I'm going back in with my slick paint, my puffy paint, just to put a few definitive drips around the opening where the pussycat has pushed his way through, and maybe some drops of frosting on his ears, the little cherry, a little bit by his little pink tongue, and some on his tail. He's a messy little cat, this one. So all the painting of the cat and the cake done, I feel that it's lacking something, and the only thing that we can really add to introduce some colour is some lovely sprinkles and dots on his bow. So cue the sprinkle song. So I've gone from some lovely lemon sprinkles to go with the raspberry frosting, and on the white frosting I'm going to add some raspberry sprinkles. Before we get to the end of this video, I really want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you do, why don't you give me a thumbs up, and if you like my videos, why don't you subscribe to the channel? And here's the finished squishy, my first ever squishy makeover. I'm really quite pleased with this. It's a bit tatty, but it's quite cute. I'm going to call her Sandy. I'll see you next week.